Have you ever felt like you're in a battle you just can't win? Surrounded, outnumbered, with no way out? What if I told you there's a weapon, a direct line to the most powerful force in the universe, that can turn the tide in an instant? This isn't about wishful thinking. This is about prayer. Imagine this. A man named Daniel, a high-ranking official, is thrown into a pit of hungry lions. The king himself, who was tricked into signing the decree, is heartbroken. He knows it's a death sentence. The den is sealed. Darkness falls. But Daniel isn't panicking. He's praying. He has a lifelong habit of talking to God, and this moment is no different. All night, the lions prowl around him, their growls echoing in the darkness, but they don't touch him. The next morning, when the stone is rolled away, Daniel walks out, completely unharmed. The king is astonished. Daniel tells him, "My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions." This isn't just an old story. It's a testament to the fact that when we call on God, he steps into our circumstances. Prayer is our unseen battlefield, and it's where our greatest victories are won. Let's dive deeper into the raw, personal power of prayer. Think about the most intense moment in Jesus' life on earth, the night before his crucifixion, in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's in agony. The weight of the world's sin is crushing him. What does he do? He prays. He falls on his face and cries out to the Father. He's not putting on a show. He is in a genuine, desperate conversation with God. This is prayer at its most vulnerable, its most real. Jesus shows us that even in our darkest hours, when we feel completely alone and overwhelmed, prayer is our lifeline. It's where we find the strength to face the impossible. Or consider Hannah, a woman ridiculed and heartbroken because she couldn't have children. Year after year, she went to the temple, her heart aching. But one year, she did something different. She poured out her entire soul to God, silently, tears streaming down her face. She wasn't just asking for a son. She was bearing her deepest pain and desire. The priest Eli initially thought she was drunk, but when he realized the depth of her sorrow and faith, he blessed her. God heard Hannah's silent, desperate prayer. He gave her a son, Samuel, who would become one of Israel's greatest prophets. Hannah's story teaches us that God isn't deaf to our silent cries. He sees our tears. He knows our pain. Personal prayer is your private sanctuary, your Gethsemane, your moment to be completely honest with God. It's where your heart connects with His, and where miracles begin to take root. Now, what happens when personal prayer gets amplified? When one voice becomes many, united in a single purpose. That's the explosive power of corporate prayer. Let's go to the early church. King Herod has just executed the Apostle James, and seeing it pleased the people, he arrests Peter, the rock of the church, and plans to execute him too. Peter is in a maximum security prison, chained between two soldiers, with more guards posted at the door. Humanly speaking, it's hopeless, but the church doesn't despair. The Bible says, "But the church was earnestly praying to God for him." They gathered, not to mourn, but to intercede. They were storming the gates of heaven on Peter's behalf. And what happened? In the middle of the night, an angel appears in the prison cell. A light shines. The angel strikes Peter on the side to wake him up, and instantly, the chains fall off his wrists. He walks right past the guards. The iron gate to the city opens by itself, and he's free. When he shows up at the house where the church is praying, they can hardly believe it. They were praying for a miracle, and the miracle knocked on their door. That's the power of praying together. Or think about the Battle of Jericho. The Israelites are facing a fortified city with massive walls. God gives them a strange battle plan. March around the city once a day for 6 days, and on the 7th day, march around it 7 times. Then shout. No catapults, no battering rams, just marching and shouting. It must have seemed crazy, but they obeyed. For 6 days, they marched in silence. On the 7th day, after the 13th lap, the priests blew their trumpets, and the entire nation let out a massive, unified shout. At that very moment, the impenetrable walls of Jericho came crashing down. Their collective obedience and faith expressed in that final shout, was a prayer in action. When we join our voices together in prayer, we're not just whispering requests. We are a spiritual army marching in unison, and walls that seem impossible to break begin to tremble and fall. Prayer doesn't just change our circumstances. It fundamentally changes us. It's a transformative force that can rewrite our very identity. There's no more dramatic example of this than a man named Saul of Tarsus. Saul was a religious zealot, a man who breathed out murderous threats against Christians. He was on his way to Damascus to hunt them down when he was knocked to the ground by a blinding light. A voice from heaven spoke to him. "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" It was Jesus. This encounter left Saul blind and shaken. For 3 days, he was in darkness. And the Bible tells us he didn't eat or drink. Instead, he prayed. In that darkness, in that state of total dependence, everything changed. God sent a disciple named Ananias to him, saying, "Go. This man is my chosen instrument. I will show him how much he must suffer for my name." When Ananias laid hands on Saul, something like scales fell from his eyes, and he could see again. But he wasn't just physically healed, he was spiritually reborn. Saul, the persecutor, became Paul, the apostle, the greatest missionary the world has ever known. His transformation began in that moment of desperate, sightless prayer. It was prayer that opened his heart to become a new creation. Then there's the story of a man named Jabez, mentioned in just 2 verses in the Old Testament. The Bible says he was more honorable than his brothers, and his name meant pain because his mother bore him in pain. But Jabez refused to be defined by his past. He prayed a bold prayer. "Oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my territory. Let your hand be with me and keep me from harm so that I will be free from pain." It was a simple, direct, and ambitious prayer. And the Bible's conclusion is just as simple. And God granted his request. Jabez prayed for transformation, for blessing, for an expansion of his influence for good, and for protection. And God answered. This shows us that we don't have to be trapped by our circumstances or our past. Through prayer, we can ask God to rewrite our story, to enlarge our territory, to transform us from who we are into who he created us to be. So, where do we go from here? We've seen prayer shut the mouths of lions, secure strength in agony, break prison chains, and topple city walls. We've seen it transform a persecutor into an apostle. Prayer is not a religious duty or a last resort. It's a lifelong journey, a continuous, living conversation with the God who loves you. It's not about finding the perfect words or the right formula. It's about opening your heart, just as you are. It's talking to God while you're driving, while you're working, celebrating your joys, and crying out in your sorrows. Just like Daniel, it's about building a habit, a rhythm of connection that becomes so natural you can't imagine a day without it. The most powerful people in history were not kings or generals, but men and women who knew how to pray. Your journey with prayer can start right now, in T's moment. You don't need a special place or a special time. Just start the conversation. Tell God what's on your heart. Invite him into your battles. Ask him to enlarge your territory. Begin to cultivate a rich prayer life, and you will see him move in ways you never thought possible. The unseen battlefield is where your story is truly written. Pick up your weapon. Start praying. Thanks for watching. If this inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content to fuel your faith. See you in the next one.